Plains of Portent, Gibson, Principality of Gibson, Free Worlds League, 3rd March, 3055. His finger hovered over the blue thumb button, which was now configured for his large laser. He held the joystick as steadily as possible, the lock numbers slipping in and out. And then the crosshairs glowed bright yellow. As Master squeezed down on the trigger, a bright red flash of energy shot out of the massive pistol in the Phoenix Hawk's right hand. The laser bolt slammed into the Ostroc's chest. It was the first shot of the battle, but it sparked a quick succession of shots from both sides. Large lasers fired orange and red beams between the two forces, cutting so thick through the air that it was soon impossible to determine which beams were going which way. Then long-range missiles, grouped in packs of 5, 10, and 15, shot across the distance between the mechs, from Merrick to Word of Blake and Regulus, and from Blake and Regulus back. Their smoky trails arced through the air like dark rainbows. As much flack as the urban mech and other battlemechs get for being silly, impractical, or inefficient designs, at least most of them have a sizable number of supporters. You can respect the fact that someone finds any one mech fun or cute or uniquely useful for their style of play in most situations. Unfortunately, when it comes to the Ostroc, we seem to have a battlemech that gets very little, if any, love, and it's pummeled as a bad design if it is remembered at all. I think this is due to a variety of factors that have resulted in a mech that is largely forgotten by most of the fan base, or actively despised without aid from a core group of mech fans. It's all the more confusing as the in-universe story of the Ostroc is very positive. Now I'm going to add a little caveat here because when I posted on Twitter that this video was coming, several people came out and said they really love the Ostroc. So keep in mind my thesis statement here is going to be tempered a little bit by newer information. Today we look at the Ostroc, its history, and perhaps we can find some hope for this old-school 60-ton battlemech as we march forward into the IlClan era. Maybe, just maybe, we can find some love for it. For most players, the first time we saw the Ostroc in BattleTech was within the pages of the 3025 technical readout. Unfortunately, this may be the source of some of the animosity toward it. I'm going to preface the next statement with the fact that Dwane Loose is one of my favorite BattleTech artists, and more often than not, I prefer his interpretations of battlemechs to later ones. That being said, the Ostroc's art in the 3025 technical readout was a rare miss. The Ostroc is drawn with what has been referred to as paddle hand missile launchers rather than functional arms. The combination of angle and orientation of the now hidden arms created a false impression of what the mech actually looked like. In the later 3050 technical readout, the Ostroc was drawn in a way that better represented it. Unfortunately, by that point, many first impressions were made. Now, it has been pointed out later that this mech represented in 3025 is a different variant than the one that actually is described in the 3025, but most people don't know that, and it becomes a distinction without a difference. While I can absolutely forgive an ugly mech, I think some just couldn't get past it, and this contributed to many writing it off for more aesthetically pleasing battlemechs like the Thunderbolt and Rifleman. But is a mech's look enough to write it off completely? After all, the urban mech has legions of fans. Maybe there's something more to it. The first Ostrocs walked off the assembly line in 2511 thanks to the efforts of Ostman Industries on Terra. It was conceived as a heavy garrison battlemech that could operate in an urban environment with enough weaponry to settle issues quickly wherever they arose. Weighing 60 tons and constructed around a Vlar 300 fusion engine, the Ostroc could hit a top speed of 86 km per hour, which is quite fast for a heavy mech at the time. That 580 movement profile was a major selling feature as it was advertised as a mech that could quickly respond to a wide variety of threats. Unfortunately, the mech lacked jump jets, which is a considerable disappointment for a battlemech intended for urban combat. That loss of mobility is frustrating, but slightly offset by the run speed. 9 tons of Reese 475 armor provided 144 points of armor protection, which was where things start to go from interesting to concerning. 9 tons of armor was a full 4 tons shy of the possible max for a 60-ton battlemech. Opportunity cost spares no one, and that 300 fusion engine had to be paid for en masse somewhere. One of the unique elements of the Ostroc is an atypical armor distribution. Most of the protection was placed over the torsos, with very little on the arms. Having just 8 armor on the left and right arms would be scary, but as we're going to see in a bit, it won't matter for the OSR-2C loadout anyway. The the Ostroc 2C's weapons are located entirely in the torsos, leaving the arms as basically vestigial limbs, with the only purpose being shields from incoming fire and maybe picking things up. Each side torso featured a large and medium laser, and the right torso carried a short-range 4 missile pack. While not an unimpressive loadout, the 15 single heat sinks on the mech made a chore out of heat management. Even firing both large lasers while standing still was enough to send the mech into the red, if just barely. Tough choices would have to be made by Mechwarriors who wanted to keep their Ostroc from shutting down in the heat of battle. Without weapons in the arms, the Ostroc suffered in the very urban combat situation it was designed for. Limited firing arcs could and often did make the difference in a knockdown street fight. However, with all of its shortcomings, apparently the Ostroc performed well in battle, according to the available information. Its low and compact silhouette made it a difficult target to hit, and the mech was used extensively to great effect in the Terran sector near the production lines. Though the mech did see some deployment across the inner sphere and saw action in the periphery during the waning years of the Star League. As the cherished Star League collapsed, the still relatively rare Ostroc was put to work like all the other battlemechs at the time. The desperate fight for survival wore down the already limited number of Ostrocs in existence. The Osman Industries production line itself was destroyed in 2777, and that guaranteed the mech would be seen in smaller and smaller numbers over time through attrition and lack of spare parts. This would be a big issue for the Ostroc, which had a tendency to lose not one but both arms in any sort of combat. It's enough to make one wonder why they even bothered putting arms on it at all. While it did have hand actuators, it's a big price to pay for occasionally picking things up or punching things. Now I know there are Comstar fans out there, so we have to add that one of the many legends among Comstar personnel about their founder, Jerome Blake, was that he was also a Mechwarrior among all his other talents, and he just so happened to pilot an Ostroc. However, this historical evidence is somewhat limited. In one notable battle report, Curitan Mechwarriors piloting urban mechs and Ostrocs were tasked with defending supply caches in a city called Marbury. 2 companies of defenders in their mechs faced off against the invaders. By using buildings and walls as cover, the Curitans were able to set up ambushes and hit their targets from multiple angles, which whittled down mechs like a Shadowhawk and Crusader, which were not equipped for such close-quarters combat. Eventually, the fight became too costly for the raiders, who were forced to retreat from the city and back to their dropships. Among the collection of field refits to the Ostroc over the hundreds of years it's been around, it has seen LRMs swapped in for the SRMs and even a third large laser added because why not just turn the mech into a hotbox? Sure, let's do it. But there are some variants that I think are notable and interesting and worth a closer look. In 2793, Kong Interstellar briefly produced the OSR-2M Ostroc, which sought to improve the mech's mobility by adding jump jets that pushed the mech's movement profile up to a 585. Unfortunately, this required pulling both the medium lasers and the short-range missile pack from the battlemech, leaving just the 2 large lasers. The 15 single heat sinks are still an issue, and it was only exacerbated by the addition of jump jets. Unfortunately, or fortunately if you don't like the variant, the Kong Interstellar Ostroc production line was destroyed shortly after Connacht was gobbled up by the Free Worlds League. While not how I would have attempted it, the 2M variant shows at least some effort went into trying to make the mech a more efficient urban fighter. The year 2905 saw a more extensive refit of the Ostroc with the OSR-9C. In order to improve the heat dissipation and add a few jump jets, the engine was downgraded. The resulting movement profile was a 463, which put the mech much more in line with other heavy battlemechs, though did improve overall mobility with the ability to leap small buildings in a single bound. The 19 single heat sinks kept the mech cool even if both large lasers were fired and a jump of full 3 hexes was performed, which was not too shabby. The 2 medium lasers were there if needed in the short range, and instead of the SRM-4 there were a pair of SRM-2s, which were nice to have on a mech that saw lots of domestic defense duties. The 9C is a much more well-rounded mech design, though it still has most of the armor centralized in the torsos and legs. It makes me wonder how many Mechwarriors just didn't bother repairing the arms on the Ostroc after they were lost in an engagement. If you are put off too much by the useless arms, there is a variant known as the Mishi, which is a 2C variant that shifts more armor onto the arms, 18 apiece, while adding jump jets and upgrading the SRM-4 to an SRM-6. All of this is accomplished by downgrading the engine to the movement profile of 464. While this does address several of the mech's issues, the 15 heatsinks remain as a lingering problem for those who have issue leaving weapons unfired each turn. The name Mishi comes from the owner of this refit Ostroc, Mishi no Kitsuna, who fought for the Draconis Combine against the Wolf's Dragoons on Misery in 3028. Again, it's a much more balanced and generalist design, and I really like it. Our next entry in our flock of Ostrocs— no wait, it should be murder. Our next entry in our murder of Ostrocs is our Helm Memory Core upgrade variant. Officially, the OSC 2D would see modest upgrades to both core and weapons loadout. The Ostroc continued to be a popular mech among those who could still field one by the 3040s, especially among garrison units within the Draconis Combine who revered theirs. Without a functioning production line, the 2D variant ended up more of a field upgrade kit that saw widespread use. As a result, the Ostroc 2D would not see a change in the structure, engine, or its 9 tons of standard armor. Thankfully, the 15 standard heatsinks were upgraded to double heatsinks, which was a godsend. Unfortunately, the upgrade of the standard large lasers to 2 diverse optics Sunbeam extended range large lasers ramped up the heat generation to match the ability to sink it away. The standard medium lasers in the side torsos remained, as well as the SRM-4 with no case in sight. Of all of the 3050 TRO upgrades to battlemechs, the Ostroc 2Ds is modest at best. This is largely due to the previously mentioned lack of new mechs being produced, as well as the low number of mechs in service at the time. It's unfortunate because the mech was crying out for some more love. Personally, I take issue with the swap to the ER large lasers, as it doesn't aid the mech to become a better urban fighter. Keeping the standard large lasers while upgrading the heatsinks to doubles would create a much deadlier design in the mid and short range. But I don't make the lore decisions. Over the centuries, the Ostroc lingered and clung on to existence in spite of its shortcomings. It's said that the mech was respected and never loved, though even that might be generous. Limping into the word of Blake kerfuffle, through the Dark Age and into the IlClan era, there are now 2 producers of the Ostroc. One variant, the 3M, is produced by Ronin Incorporated, which is located on Wallace within the Free Worlds League. The other variant is the 6R from Kong Interstellar, which is based on Konnak, also within the Free Worlds League as of 3151. The brand new OSR 3M Ostroc began to walk off the assembly line in 3088 and contained a significant number of upgraded features which drastically changed the battlemech. Though the structure and original Vlar 300 fusion engine remained the same, it was given 12 double heatsinks, has 8.5 tons of light ferrofibrous armor, and an upgraded communications and targeting and tracking system. The light ferrofibrous armor didn't change the defensive picture, as it provided the same 144 points of protection from the original 2C Ostroc. It does, however, buy a half ton of mass for use elsewhere. A supercharger was added to the center torso to boost the mech's movement profile from 580 to 510 when needed. It does make me wonder why, if you had 2 tons to spare, why you wouldn't just add jump jets, but deep calming breaths, McFrog. Not everyone has to like what you like. Sorry, where was I? Yes, the dangerous bits. In the loadout that would appear similar to the fans of the original Ostroc, there are 2 diverse optics Sunbeam extended range large lasers and 2 diverse optics extended range medium lasers split between the left and right torsos. A Streak SRM-4 is right at home in the right torso, though this time the 1 ton of ammunition is protected by case to limit the damage in an ammunition explosion. This loadout is warm, very warm, perhaps out of tradition, but it's not going to be as bad of a problem as the original. Laying off one of the ER large lasers when in short range allows the firing of both ER medium lasers and Streak SRM-4 without going too deep into the red on the heat scale. Overall, the Ostroc 3M is a solid machine so long as you have comfortably moved past the 8 armor on the empty arms. Personally, I would still pull the supercharger to add a couple of jump jets, though I'm already getting ideas for the MechFrog variant. Now for the OSR 6R variant, it's important to note that Kong Interstellar is producing this Ostroc within a partnership with Clan Seafox. When you see the clan weapons on this thing, you'll understand. From the ground up, this is going to feel like a different battlemech. While still 60 tons and resembling the original Ostroc visually, it has all of the technological bells and whistles. The OST-2E endocomposite frame saves mass in exchange for volume, and the Intersphere-graded Hermes 360 XL engine does the same but allows the mech to run at up to 97 km per hour. That's a movement profile of 690. 9 tons of reflective armor provide the typical 144 points of armor protection, though with all the advantages and drawbacks of being very shiny. 18 Intersphere double heatsinks will keep the mech cool in most circumstances. The 2 ER large lasers and ER medium lasers split between the left and right torsos are clan tech, so they benefit from weight savings, better damage, and all that. The Streak SRM-4 is the standard Intersphere variety, but the 1 ton of ammunition is protected by case 2. The Ostroc 6R packs a punch and can more consistently fire its weapons thanks to the clan tech and the additional double heatsinks. It eclipses the threat of the Ostroc 3M, but it's important to consider there is a significant cost increase that comes along with all the fancy technology. It's not a battle mech you would be purchasing for routine garrison duty, but if you did want to throw off an opponent, you could waddle out onto the battlefield in your 6R and your enemy would be none the wiser and could possibly mistake you for the less dangerous opponent. Something to ponder. Now I have to ask, if I put weapons into the arms of the Mech Frog variant, have I broken the sacred Ostroc trust? Will it close the 7th seal of the 7th door in the 7th house and usher in the end times for humanity? We may have to find out. Maybe we won't tempt fate. Behold the Ostroc OSR 1MF in all of its glory. We've pulled out all the stops and created what I think is a superior urban combat battle mech that still fits well with the theme of the original Ostroc. To save mass, we've converted the internal structure to endosteel and replaced the original fusion engine with an equivalent light fusion option. It retains the 5.8 movement, though we're also adding 4 jump jets to push the movement profile up to a 5.84. I think 9 tons of armor is a little too light, so we went ahead and boosted it to 11 tons of light ferrofibrous armor. In keeping with the Ostroc theme, a few points of armor were shifted from the arms onto the torso locations. With all that out of the way, let's look at the dangerous bits. You'll be absolutely shocked to hear that I've placed a plasma rifle on this thing, though I did put it in the left torso because we want to leave those arms as empty as possible. It carries 2 tons of ammunition in the same location. Backing it up at the short range are a pair of medium pulse lasers and 2 small pulse lasers split between the left and right torsos. In the head, there's an emotional support ER small laser, and finally, all the weapons will be aided by a targeting computer in the right torso. The Ostroc 1MF would be extremely dangerous in close-quarters city fighting, be the target battle mech, vehicle, or those oh-so-flammable infantry. While it lacks a long-range option, the other variants of the Ostroc carrying those large lasers could fill that niche. This one is for leaping out of dark alleys and ruining some poor convoy's entire afternoon. I'd love to know what you think. So why do we love the Ostroc? Or maybe the question should be, why should we love the Ostroc? While obviously not a perfect design, it does have a certain charm to it. The original TRO art is really hard to move past, though I don't begrudge Dwane Loose for it at all. The mech really hasn't gotten the kind of upgrades that it needed to become as awesome as it could be. I think this explains the disconnect between what the lore says about the mech being appreciated and even celebrated and the out-of-universe player base that has either forgotten it exists or has lukewarm feelings for it. I should mention, in the time since I started writing this script and the end, the messages on Twitter concerning the Ostroc have really come out in support of it, so perhaps my hypothesis was wrong after all. Maybe there's an underground community of Ostroc lovers out there. Maybe we really do love this thing after all. If so, this video is for you. I hope you enjoyed it. Do you have a favorite Ostroc variant? Do you have a lance of them on your shelf waiting for their time to shine? Let me know, I want to hear from you. Thank you so much for coming by as we talked BattleTech. This year has been incredible for the growth of the channel, and I owe it all to you, the viewers who stick around long enough to hear these words. I'm blessed and value every opportunity I have to make these videos for you. If I don't see or hear from you again before New Year's, I hope you finish the year strong, happy, and healthy. Take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.